Welcome to Regular Achievers Education Limited, presenting Royal Tutors, your trusted support for brain-friendly high-impact learning. Today, we will be comparing poems. And the poem to be comparing today is Kamikaze by Beatrice Garland and Charge of the Light Brigade by Alfred Lord Tennyson from the poem Complete Cluster. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to understand the key ideas in both poems. Compare how war, honor, and duty are presented, analyze language structure and form, write a clear conceptual comparison using the GCSE mark scheme. Now, in Kamikaze, it is written by Beatrice Garland, inspired by Japanese kamikaze pilots in World War II. Kamikaze pilots were expected to die for their country. Turning back was seen as dishonorable. The key idea is that the poem questions whether blind obedience and honor are worth the human cost. Why, for the Charge of the Light Brigade, it was written by Alfred Lord Tennyson, a poet laureate, based on a real event in the Crimean War in 1854. British soldiers were sent on a fatal charge due to a command error. The poem was written to honor the soldiers, not criticize them. Soldiers are presented as heroic, obedient, and sacrificial, even in the face of death. That's the key idea for Charge of the Light Brigade. Now, the core comparison ideas. These are the these are the big ideas examiner will reward. The first one is duty, honor, obedience, individual choice versus collective expectation, glory versus consequences. A key comparison insight. Both poems explore duty in war, but while the Charge of the Light Brigade glorifies obedience, Kamikaze challenges it. Comparison. How poets present. Oh, okay. This is for the GCSE exam question, and then it goes like, compare how poets present ideas about duty and honor in Kamikaze and the Charge of the Light Brigade. Now remember, this is a 30 marker question. A1, A2, A3 are being assessed. Comparison must be continuous, not bolted on at the end. Now, this is a modern response. Both Kamikaze and the Light of the Charge Brigade explore ideas of duty and honor in war. However, they present contrasting attitude towards obedience. Tennyson presents duty as noble and unquestionable, while Garland presents it as deeply damaging when it overrides personal choice. In the Charge of the Light Brigade, the soldiers are depicted as heroic figures who follow orders without hesitation. The repeated phrase, theirs is not the reason why, and theirs but to do and die, reinforces the idea that Duty means absolute obedience. The use of repetition and rhythm mirrors the unstoppable movement of the charge, suggesting that honor lies in action rather than thoughts. This reflects Victorian value, where loyalty to authority and national pride were celebrated. In contrast, Kamikaze presents duty as a force that destroys both the individual and their family. Although the pilot turned back from his mission, he is treated as though he is dead, suggesting that honor in his society is conditional upon sacrifice. Garland used natural imagery such as green, blue, translucent sea to emphasize the beauty of life, with contrast sharply with the expectation of death. This suggests that blind loyalty strips individual of humanity rather than elevates them. Structurally, Tennyson uses a regular rhythm and strong collective voice to present unity and shared purpose, whereas Galland's fragmented narrative and shifting perspective highlight isolation and emotional loss. Ultimately, both poems show the pressure of duty in war. The Charge of the Light Brigade celebrates collective honor, whereas Kamikaze exposes the devastating consequences of valuing honor above life. This response compares idea, methods, and contexts throughout. That's why it reaches the top band for the GCSE mark scheme. Now let's break down the scheme. AO1 idea and comparison. You have to give clear argument, sustained comparison. Why for AO2, which has to do with the method, you have to analyze language, structure forms linked to meanings. Why for AO3, you have to talk about the context, the relevance, not dumped and linked to ideas. Now, for a grade 9 answer, you have to do this, or you don't have to do this. Don't narrate, don't quote excessively, don't analyze don't analyze techniques in isolation. They connect everything back to the question. Alright, now to check your understanding, you have to do this. Write poems that celebrate obedience and which questions it's. I take that again. Which poem celebrates obedience and which one questions it? What quotation from Kamikaze shows the cost of honor? What does Tennyson avoid criticizing authority directly? Why do Tennyson avoid criticizing authority directly? Now, after answering, you briefly go over your answer. Now, these are essay tickets. Now, you are to complete one of the sentences. Both texts present duty differently because, or you're to write on comparison sentence using whereas or however. For example, whereas Tennyson presents duty as glorious and collective, Galland presents it as isolating and constructive. So let's see you do yours. Now, here are other poems you can compare with Kamikaze. The first one is Kamikaze and Remains. The second one is Kamikaze and Exposure. Another one is Kamikaze and Light of the Charge Brigade, which we've just done. Then we have Kamikaze and Bayonet Charge. And then we have Kamikaze and Poppies. And then we have Kamikaze and Check Out Me History. Alright, thank you for listening and thank you for joining. I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.